Welcome to Talent Takeover
Unfiltered.
When it comes to working hard and keeping it real, we know our shit. Self-care, happiness, inner peace, and time. I'm Brianna Rooney, and this is Taylor Bradley.
Hey, y'all.
And we have thrived in chaos and turned it into an art form. So Taylor, what are we doing here today?
We're here to give you a raw, under-the-hood view of all things recruiting and finally give credit where credit is due to a long underrated industry that's full of quote-unquote experts.
All right. Well, then let's take this show to the road. All right. Here comes another fun episode on Talent Takeover Unfiltered on how to create confidence. Yeah. Taylor, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Super great, because I've got my Talent Takeover Unfiltered shirt on. You do too? Remember, y'all, you can listen to this, or you can watch this on the Millionaire Recruiter YouTube channel, and you can comment, and we'll have so much fun with that. I love it.
Yeah. And we have this merch, which I think you were going with that.
Yeah.
Where you're going with that when you were talking about our merch. We do have this new merch available. Super soft t-shirts. We're all about the quality, like a soft t-shirt. We love them here. So you guys have to check those out. We have hoodies, we have t-shirts, we have hats, we have all kinds of good stuff. So make sure you check out the links too.
Love it. Awesome. Okay. So we, as everyone knows, we tangent on this a lot. And this is definitely meant to be all in like recruiting, talent acquisition, but there's so much more that goes into this position, into this job, and that can really set you up for success. And confidence is like number one, and if you don't have it, you got to fake it. But we have lots of cool tips here on how you can actually create it, and it can feel real, and it can be real, not just feel real.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. And I think there's some, what we're going to talk about too is some misconceptions with confidence. And so I think that leads us nicely into our first one, which is, success is more directly correlated with confidence than it is with competence, which I think is really interesting because I think it's a common misconception that people have, I think, with confidence is they assume that, myself included, if you see somebody that's uber confident, you're like, okay, they know it all. They have their shit together. Whatever they said is facts. And it's like, but that's exactly by design what they're trying to do. You know what I mean? Even if they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground, they're still like, the air of confidence will make you think that they're just like the most on it person. They're super sharp, super on top of it. But I think confidence can sometimes mask competence, that you maybe don't really know what you're doing or what you're talking about, but it goes back to what we always talk about, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And really where that saying probably came from is, have the confidence that you made it, or have the confidence that you're doing whatever X is, whatever it is that you want to do. And it's going to make you seem like you have more competency with regards to whatever that is, whatever subject that is, whatever you're trying to do in business or professional. So what are your thoughts on that?
My head was spinning on that. So, we have the Millionaire Recruiter program where we're teaching people not only how to be just badass, most efficient recruiters, right? But we're teaching them how to open up their own agency. And that is a subject we talk about probably every week. And everyone needs help with it, even if they've already have been a successful recruiter. It's like, it's the confidence to get the clients, the confidence to then talk to the clients and get the fee agreement signed. It's then the confidence to say, hey, I got this. Because in recruiting, this is, in my opinion, one of the only jobs that you could be, day one recruiter talking to a CEO of a company, about their hiring, which is the most important function of their company, right? So it's scary. And you have to have the confidence because, what's great is, again, this person can be really accomplished. Everyone knows them in tech. So it could be director of engineering even, and this person is a badass in engineering and has, computer science, PhD in computer science, who knows, right? But it doesn't matter. The fact is you are the experts. And so you have to make them feel that. And if they can't feel that, then, well, what are you going to do? But that goes to exactly what you're talking about, that even if, again, day one, if you have the confidence, they're like, okay, cool. They're not even going to question it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you go figure it out.
Well, and I think if you're showing up to your point, to a CEO or somebody like that, you're having a conversation with them, you have to have your shit together. You have to be able to have, and part of having confidence too, for our listeners, is not just knowing everything, right? But it's also being confident enough to say you don't know something, or say, hey, I don't have the answer for you on that, but I'll get back to you on that. I think that's really powerful too. So I think confidence is also being really honest and excuse me, having the confidence to be honest and say, hey, I don't have that answer for you, or I may not know that. I'll circle back with you on that.
Yep. Love that.
And then this is a big one. I feel like men, women, everybody, regardless of who you are, can struggle with this. Are you disempowering yourself with your thoughts? So, the words you say and the story you repeat in your own head makes up your whole physiology. So be kind to yourself.
Yes. So Cheryl's our exec coach. Again, if you guys listen, you know that, but she talks about this all the time. And like, it's such a moment. And even though I've heard this before, I get the chills every single time because fuck, you write your own story.
Yeah.
Like whatever you say to yourself, that's the story that you're writing. And again, it turns into manifesting.
Yeah.
So it's powerful. So powerful. Be nice. Exactly. Be nice to yourself. It's just so crazy that we could be so kind to a stranger and we're such assholes to ourselves. And it's like you're literally kicking yourself. Like if you like that, like you took yourself out of your mind, it's like you're like just kicking yourself against the wall. It's awful.
Yeah. And so I think it's really important for our listeners. We get these good nuggets from Cheryl, like you said, to share with them that, she said that about the story you tell yourself and repeat in your head makes up your whole physiology. But also once you become aware of the power you and your brain have, you can replace negative self-talk with strategic and positive thoughts. So I think it's just like you said, Brianna, it's acknowledging, that becomes your story. Like that becomes facts. What you manifest, the story you tell yourself, it does become your reality. And so understanding that is the case, that whatever you're telling yourself is actually going to end up being your story, then change the narrative of your own story. And I think that's really important because I catch myself doing that too. Like you're saying, sometimes, we're really hard on ourselves and say things. It's like, oh, I'm such a fucking dipshit. I'll say things like that to myself. And I'm like, but I wouldn't say that to anybody else or not feel that way about anybody else in that same situation. But I'm like, oh, what a fucking idiot. We are hard on ourselves. Going right into another one that we say all the time. And I really do. I say this to my kids probably daily, but feelings are not facts. Your thoughts aren't facts. So I think that's a big one. That's another one for like, just because I think I'm a fucking idiot or a dumbass sometimes doesn't mean I actually am.
Okay, so everyone knows, well, hopefully if you listen, that we don't talk before, we don't talk about like the session, we don't like look at like some script or anything like that. But what's funny is I was like, because we talk so much that I was like, all right, I'm not going to say what I think. But when you were talking about that last point, I was literally saying, wow, you say all the times facts are not feelings. And all of a sudden you went bam, and here's the next one. I was like, that's exactly what I was thinking. That even though you're telling yourself something, that's not facts. Like, yeah, I love that you said that.
Yeah. That thoughts are not facts, feelings are not facts. And so again, going back to, just because I think I'm a dumbass sometimes doesn't mean I actually am. But again, it goes back to like, why would I say that to myself if that's not something I would say to a stranger or anybody else in the situation? I think we oftentimes give others grace that we don't give ourselves. And that, goes back to our women's empowerment and women in business episode that we did, where we talk a lot about how, women, we struggle with guilt, and we struggle with holding ourselves to, I think, a higher expectation than anybody else holds us to or wants us to be held to,
Yeah.
So,
well, we were told at a really young age, it's like, oh, you have to choose. You can either have a family, a great family, or you could be a powerful woman in business. Well, why? Why do we have to choose? I don't get it. Why can't we do both? And we can. And that's definitely what that episode's, if you haven't checked out, Women Are Great Entrepreneurs, definitely check that out and hopefully open up your goddamn business. But yeah, let's keep to the confidence.
Bet on yourself. All right. So, this is all in line with everything we've been talking about, but modify your relationship to failure. So admit it happened. Think about a plan for the next time that you're in that scenario, and just move on, And I think that's really powerful too, is modifying your relationship to failure and how you view things as failure or what you view as failure. And that one's a hard one to do. I feel like if anybody sit there and thinks about moments you're like, oh my God, where you're just like kicking yourself. Most of that is going to be probably a negative connotation where you're like, oh, I failed there, versus that was a growth moment. That was a growth opportunity. And I was actually listening to somebody just this morning. He was speaking on reframing your thoughts for imposter syndrome to be, these are growth moments. So instead of thinking like, I don't deserve to be in this room or on this panel or speaking with these people or, in the same breadth as these people, and that's kind of what his story was, is he was in a panel with people that he was like, oh my gosh, I've been like following these people in business from the age that I was 15. And so it was really powerful for him to be surrounded by them and as one of their peers. But he was saying, I look at those as, and reframed his thoughts to be not imposter syndrome, like, what am I doing here? I don't deserve to be here. To be, these are growth moments for me, that these are moments that are being placed in front of me for me to stretch myself, expand, get out of my comfort zone, and have these growth moments where I eventually will feel like, okay, I do deserve to be here, which I thought was interesting, that I'm like, okay, so it seems like maybe if you do something over and over again, you're like, okay, I deserve to be here. I deserve to do that. Which I think has been, and I'll just get a little personal here, I think it's been the case for me with regards to this podcast. It was one of those things, and I'm like, the fuck are we going to talk about? Nobody wants to hear me talk about and curse and say all this bullshit and just rant. But I'm like, sure as shit, people can relate to it. And I'm like, that's really powerful. And so when we first started the podcast, I had all of those feelings. And now I don't discredit the things that we say or do. And even when we tangent and rant and it's like, we're cackling hens, it's still, to me, I'm like, somebody out there can relate to it, or it's going to lighten their day or something. It's 10, 15 minutes out of their day, and it just might bring somebody a smile. And we actually deserve to be here and deserve to have this podcast, and people want to listen to it, and that's even better,
Yeah.
So
You got always remind yourself, like, you work really fucking hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for me, I think it's just because I've been an entrepreneur for so long. Like, I could have a failure party. It's like, all right, here we go again. This is great. And so luckily I have had a really great relationship with failure really early on.
Mhm.
But it also probably because, like, I just didn't give a shit. Like, so I definitely had the confidence back then where I was like, I don't fucking cares. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? But I will say, it creeped up on me, like, as I became more successful, and like I was relating to the panel thing. I'm going to speak in July, like, shit, I don't even want to, like, see who the other speakers are because I don't want to go down that road. I don't want to compare myself, because that's another thing. It's like, in order to have, I think, true confidence, you don't compare yourself to anyone. I mean, think about just what we tell our kids, because they'll be like, well, that person did this, that person has this, and we're constantly being like, you don't compare yourself to anyone. But it's like, wait, why am I comparing myself to somebody?
Yeah. Exactly.
We all have our own journeys. I mean, just in the Millionaire Recruiter program, all the different entrepreneur recruiters, like, we have to constantly say, you guys are on your own journey, because they're going like, oh, I feel behind on this person. I feel like this person has a better LinkedIn profile already. I feel like this person's doing that. No, 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 no. Like, your journey is your journey. Like, you'll get there if you want to get there and you have the work ethic and all of those things, you want to get there. But it's like, no, stand tall, you will get there.
Well, and I mean, that's so much easier said than done with social media these days. And I feel like that's where I've had to really, I know you don't dabble in social media with the exception of LinkedIn, but that's where there's been times in my life that I had to just completely detach from it and stop logging on and even looking at it for months at a time, because I was getting in those funks where I was just comparing myself to people. And it's going back to the episode that we did about mentors. Whenever I was doing the research for that episode, it talked a lot about the internal and external mentors. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting that, you have these external mentors, and that can show up in the form of social media, where social media is mentoring you, and it can be a positive mentorship, right? But it can also lead you down a negative path where you're just continuously comparing yourself, the way you look, which I think is definitely happening. That's a theme that we're all seeing with younger kids, these high school age girls and stuff that are comparing themselves on social media. And, we talk a lot about Botox and stuff, but it's crazy to me to think that there's like 18, 19, 20-year-olds getting Botox and filler and all of that because they're seeing this perception on social media. Ooh.
Yeah. I feel like I could tangent on this because this happened to my brother when he went to college, and he's like, I mean, he's fine now, but he definitely had to start talking to someone because he was seeing all these people do all this cool shit. But it's like, like I laugh when I see that t-shirt. It's like I'm much cooler on Facebook, but it's like, yeah, that's fucking true. Like, there's just so much AI, so much avatar, stuff that it's just so much fake. I mean, there's now fake profiles on LinkedIn. Like, it's an abundance, so it's like, yeah, you have to just, again, with the confidence thing, not drift too far away from who you are and who, you want to be, as opposed to who these people are and who they say they are. You know,
Yeah.
so like nobody knows. No one knows what's going on. And I even have to remind myself, that sometimes like if I'm having road rage, for example, and I'm like, oh, you're not getting in your night, paying attention. I don't know what that person's doing right there. I don't know if someone has to rush because I don't know their kid's sick or who knows, right? It's like you just don't know what people are going through, and I think that goes, what we were saying with social media and the confidence that you have to just like, oh, like it just should be taken with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks cool. Okay.
Yeah. Well, take it with a grain of salt, and their journey is not your journey. I think are both really important lessons. That it's like, okay, you can't believe everything you see. I can't tell you how many stories I've read about. It comes out that these Instagram influencers have like fake diamonds, like fake jewelry, so that you see them with like these massive rings and these amazing purses, and it's like, yeah, it came out that, or it comes out all the time that it's not real. So I think it's easier said than done. And like I said, I took a break from social media for like 3 months because of that. And even from a break from the shows that I was watching, and I haven't watched them in over a year, but the Real Housewives series, it was like, just
That's
comparing.
exactly what I was thinking. I haven't watched that shit. Like I actually started getting nightmares. Like because I watched before I go to bed, and it would be just so confrontational and catty and just insane. And I would have nightmares from it, which is hilarious because it's just this fucking reality show, right? But it's like, no, yeah. And most of them are broke. Yeah, no, it's like, it's hilarious. Like, they're going in jail, they're doing this. It's just, I don't know, it's a mess.
I think that all the recent ones with them going to jail or them being sued and all this stuff, it's like, it's really blown up that whole, I feel like there was a false sense of confidence and security around them and like and it's like, you're broke. Yeah. A lot of you are broke. A lot of it is fake. You're in a rented house, not knocking that, but it's like, you can't, they're positioning all of this stuff as if it's theirs, as if they own it. And they're getting, gowns and things like that from these amazing designers rented to them and given to them. And it's stuff. It's like, okay, you've got to really, you said it earlier and it's very true. Just take it with a grain of salt. And so I think even when you see people that come off as really, really confident, take it with a grain of salt that they're probably faking something to some extent. They probably were nervous. Like I know whenever you have your speaking engagement in July, that you're going to absolutely go and crush that. But I'm going to know that your process leading up to that, you were like, okay, I'm a little nervous because you're one of the most confident people that I've ever met. And so it's like, okay, everybody, even no matter how much confidence they exude, everybody's got their things that make them like, okay, should I be here? Should I be doing this? They kind of question themselves. But I think that's really powerful is that, their journey's not your journey. Take it with a grain of salt. So I think this segues nicely into my broke to boss tip, which is you may be the most skilled person, but if you lack confidence in yourself or your abilities, you've only got part of the ingredients for the success recipe.
Oh, that's so good. It makes me even want to put like a success recipe together. Like I'm thinking of a cookbook.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure Kate, who does our marketing, she's feasting over this right now. She's like, of course you're going to do this. But there definitely is a recipe, but everyone's success again goes back to the journey is going to be slightly different. But I do think that there are different traits and different things that you could do that would work into just being a very successful, confident individual.
Yeah, I like that. So I like that we leave our listeners with kind of some action items of things that we're going to do. We've referenced our health checklist and success recipe. So I think that's really important. And we should put that out. We should come up with a few ideas of what we feel create the success recipe. And again, as always, we encourage our listeners, share your thoughts with us. What do you think? Do you think that there is a success recipe? And if so, what does that look like for you? Because obviously it's going to vary depending upon the individual. And to your point, there's some themes, but I'd love to hear from our listeners, what they feel goes into their success recipe.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that. I'm getting the chili willies over here. Nice. And also want to thank, some listeners as well that either via YouTube or on LinkedIn, we've gotten a lot of requests for topics, which is super, super fun for us. And then someone the other day was just like, how nerdy do you want to get? Like, do you want to go down in recruiting? I'm like, are you joking? I could talk nerdy to you all day long when it comes to recruiting. Nerdy to you. Yeah. I love it. So Taylor, awesome episode. Thanks so much. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Thanks, y'all.